In this example, we have 1 over x plus 1 plus x plus 4 over x minus 6 equal 5 over x squared minus 5x minus 6. So for this particular example, we have a trinomial and one fraction. So in this part, before you look for your LCD, you always check if you can factor the denominator. In this case, we have to, in this example, mainly in the fraction on the right side, at the very right, the last fraction. Now over here, there's not much to factor for x plus 1, it's in its simplest form, and not much you can factor in x minus 6. So you gotta factor this, and I'm not gonna do the work for factoring, I'm just gonna write out the factors. I do recommend that you pause this video and write out the work for factoring so that you can understand the whole process. Now if you don't, then you might get confused when you're referring to your notes, when you're studying and doing homework or classwork, if you don't understand the whole process. So I do recommend you pause this video, write out the work when you're factoring x squared minus 5x minus 6. So I'm going to rewrite this problem. So everything else is going to stay the same. So these two fractions will stay the same. Now for the last fraction, I'm going to factor the denominator, so the numerator will stay the same, but in my denominator, when I factor x squared minus 5x minus 6, I'm going to have x plus 1 times x minus 6. So those are the two factors for x squared minus 5x minus 6. Now from there, once I finish factoring, I can start formulating my LCD. So the first two fractions have two different denominators, x plus 1 and x minus 6. But I just noticed in my last fraction that it has the x plus 1 from the first fraction and it has the x minus 6 from the second fraction. So one great thing is that these factors are matching to each other. So these two fractions have x plus 1, while these two fractions have x minus 6. So it seems that for our LCD, for common denominator, we need to have the factors that we see in the first two fractions, basically what we see in the last one. So x plus 1 times x minus 6. Alright, now let's get common denominator. In the first fraction, it has x plus 1. According to the LCD, it's just missing x minus 6. So I'm going to multiply the denominator and numerator by the missing factor, which is x minus 6. In the second fraction, it has x minus 6, but according to the LCD, it's missing x plus 1. So I'm going to multiply the numerator and denominator by x plus 1. In addition, I'm putting the numerator and denominator of the second fraction in parentheses. And in the last fraction, its denominator matches with the LCD, so I'm not going to touch it, I'm not going to mess with it, I'm just going to leave it like that. So if you closely examine all the fraction, it has the x minus 6, it has the x plus 1, so basically all the fractions are going to have common denominator. I'm just going to focus on the numerator. So I'm going to write down just the numerator. So this one is x minus 6 times 1. Bring down my plus. Here, parenthesis x plus 4 times x plus 1 equal to 5. Now from here, in this first part, I'm going to distribute my 1 to the x and minus 6. So 1 times x is x. 1 times negative 6 will be minus 6. Bring down my plus. Now here, I'm going to have to FOIL. So I'm going to have it still in parentheses, So when I FOIL, x times x is x squared. X times positive 1 will be positive x. 4 times x will be positive 4x. And then 4 times positive 1 will be positive 4. Close parenthesis. And then bring down equal to 5. Next, I'm going to combine like terms because that's the only thing I can do next. Everything else, there's not much I can do. So I'm going to bring down my x minus 6. Bring down my plus, parenthesis. So inside the parenthesis, the only thing that I can combine is my x and the positive 4x. So positive x plus 4x will be positive 5x. Bring down my plus 4. Bring down my x squared. Close parenthesis equal to 5. After that, I'm going to distribute my plus to everything that's inside the parenthesis. So the first part is going to stay the same, so x minus 6. So positive times positive x squared will be positive x squared. Positive times positive 5x will be positive 5x. Positive times positive 4 will be positive 4, and it equals to 5. So once I finish distributing my plus, I am going to combine like terms. So let's see what I can combine. Now the x squared, there's not much, so I'm just going to bring it down. But I can combine my x with the 5x. So x plus 5x will be plus 6x. And then my number, negative 6 and positive 4. So negative 6 plus 4 will be minus 2 equal to 5. So before I do anything else, I notice I just have an x squared on the left side. That means that I'm going to have a trinomial, a quadratic equation. So at this point, I should know that I'm going to have two answers since there's an x squared. So in order to solve this quadratic equation, we need to make the right side equal to 0, meaning that I want to get everything on the left side. So since I have x squared and it's positive on the left side, we need to get everything that's on the right side on the left. So I'm going to cancel out this 5 right here. So on the right, to cancel out the 5, I'm going to subtract 5 on the right side, therefore subtract 5 on the left side. I'm going to have x squared plus 6x. Here, negative 2 minus 5 will be negative 7 equal to 0. So that's my quadratic equation, x squared plus 6x minus 7. So I'm going to write over here and I'm going to factor. I'm not going to write out the work, I'm just going to simply factor right into it. So I'm going to bring it over here, so we're going to have x squared plus 6x minus 7 equal to 0. So I'm simply going to factor this trinomial, or also known as quadratic equation. I do, however, recommend that you pause this video and write out the factoring work so you can understand the whole process. So again, I do recommend you pause, write out the work for factoring. Once you finish, continue. So when I'm factoring x squared plus 6x minus 7, I'm going to have two factors, which is x plus 7 times x minus 1. And it's going to equal to 0. So once I get to that part, what I'm going to do is set each factor equal to 0 when I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to set x plus 7 equal to 0. And you can only do this if these two factors were equal to 0, meaning this quadratic equation equal to 0. And now I'm going to set my second factor, x minus 1, equal to 0. Now, from there, to solve for x, in the first part, I'm going to subtract 7 on both sides. So when I do that, I'm going to have x equal negative 7. For this factor, I'm going to add 1 to both sides so I can solve for x. So I'm going to have x equals positive 1. So my two solutions are x equal to negative 7 and x equal to positive 1. So those are going to be my two answers. And let me box that up. Now, the only time that you should know you're going to have two answers, two solutions, is that when you write down the numerator, FOIL, distribute, combine like terms, and then you see that you have an x squared. That means the moment you're going to have an x squared, most likely, if it doesn't cancel out, if your x squared doesn't cancel out, you're going to have a trinomial or a quadratic equation. At that point, you should know you're going to have two answers, which, as you can clearly see, we do. In this example, our final solutions is x equals negative 7 and x equals 1.